Did you know that Amsterdam, known for its beauty and freedom, is also a city where shadows tell darker tales? Among these shadows stood Steve Brown, a man who rose from nothing to become one of Europe's most feared criminals. But this is not just a tale of his rise. This is the story of his downfall, his incarceration, and why his name still matters today. Ask yourself, what would it take to dismantle an empire built on fear and betrayal? Born in 1954, Steve Brown grew up in Amsterdam's working-class neighborhoods. By his teenage years, he had already begun dabbling in petty crimes, selling stolen goods and running scams. But the Amsterdam of the 1970s was fertile ground for something much bigger. Drugs flooded the city, with heroin and cocaine leading the charge. And Brown wasn't about to miss his chance. By the late 1970s, Brown controlled a significant portion of Amsterdam's drug trade. His network extended to suppliers in Turkey, Asia, and South America. Police began monitoring him in 1978, but every time they got close, he vanished. His operations too smooth, his insiders too loyal or too scared to betray him. In 1981, a violent clash between Brown's crew and a rival gang marked a turning point. 3 of his enemies were found beaten and left for dead, and Brown's dominance in the city was cemented. But this wasn't just about brute force. Steve Brown's real weapon was strategy. Brown infiltrated the city's elite. Politicians, club owners, and even law enforcement found themselves entangled in his web. With bribes and blackmail, he made himself untouchable. By 1985, he was raking in millions, laundering money through nightclubs and offshore accounts. To the outside world, he was a successful entrepreneur. To the underworld, he was the king. In 1989, the walls began to close in. A police raid resulted in Brown's arrest. Authorities confiscated millions in assets and connected him to a string of crimes across Europe. But Steve Brown wasn't worried. Witnesses refused to testify. Evidence disappeared and he walked free after just 2 days in custody. His message was clear. He was untouchable. But perhaps you realize that even ghosts can leave behind traces. In 1993, a rivalry with John Miramet turned deadly. A botched assassination attempt on Brown escalated into a bloody gang war. The violence attracted international attention, forcing authorities to prioritize his capture. By the mid-1990s, Steve Brown's empire had become too big to ignore. His brazen activities, rival killings, drug trafficking, and a network that spanned continents threatened Amsterdam's stability. Law enforcement, frustrated by years of failed attempts to convict him, devised a sting operation unlike any they had undertaken before. They called it Operation Nightfall. The operation began with months of groundwork. A former associate of Brown's, arrested in a separate case, agreed to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence. He provided critical information, locations of safe houses, drug shipments, and most importantly, Brown's favorite meeting spots. His tip led investigators to a penthouse apartment in Amsterdam's De Pijp district, a fortress-like property Brown used to meet key players in his network. Surveillance revealed Brown's obsession with routine, a key weakness. Every Thursday night he hosted private meetings at the penthouse. Detectives knew this was their chance. To gain access to Brown's inner circle, police planted an undercover agent posing as a weapons dealer with connections to South American cartels. Brown, always seeking more firepower to protect his empire, took the bait. Over weeks, the agent built trust, even attending small gatherings in Brown's circle. This mole provided invaluable intel, confirming the presence of drugs and cash in the penthouse and identifying key players in Brown's network. But the danger was immense. If the mole's identity were discovered, the consequences would be deadly. With weeks of intelligence in hand, the team finalized the plan. The penthouse was surrounded by high-tech security, motion sensors, cameras, and armed guards. breaching it required precision timing. The operation would coincide with one of Brown's Thursday meetings, ensuring he and his top associates would all be in one place. Dozens of officers were involved, including SWAT teams and undercover agents stationed nearby. The operation was timed down to the second. Any mistake could give Brown enough time to escape, something he had done countless times before. At exactly 11:17 p.m., the operation began. While a helicopter hovered above the building as a distraction, SWAT teams breached the penthouse's rear entrance. Simultaneously, another team cut power to the building, plunging it into darkness. Inside, chaos erupted. Brown's men attempted to resist, but the tactical team's precision was unmatched. Within minutes, they subdued the guards and moved toward the main room, where Brown and his lieutenants were cornered. Steve Brown was arrested without a single shot, fired, a testament to the operation's meticulous planning. In the room, police found $5 million in cash, over 20 kilograms of cocaine, and detailed records of Brown's criminal dealings, implicating several prominent figures in Amsterdam and beyond. The raid marked the end of an era. Brown was charged with multiple counts of drug trafficking, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit murder. In court, prosecutors presented damning evidence gathered during the raid and through months of surveillance. His conviction was swift, and he was sentenced to 15 years in a high-security prison. Brown's capture set a precedent for international law enforcement. His case underscored the importance of patience, intelligence, and collaboration in taking down organized crime. Today, similar tactics are used to dismantle modern cartels and mafia groups across Europe and America, showing that even the most elusive criminals can be brought to justice. Steve Brown was sentenced to 15 years in prison. His empire crumbled, his fortune vanished, and his once loyal associates turned on him. But incarceration didn't silence him. Behind bars, he wrote a tell-all book, naming names and exposing corruption within the police force. The book was a sensation, dividing public opinion. Some saw him as a criminal mastermind who deserved his fate. Others viewed him as a whistleblower, exposing a corrupt system that allowed him to thrive for so long. Organized crime evolves. One question remains: how many more empires like his are hiding in the shadows, waiting for their turn under the spotlight?